Luis Mendez.
Hello, Oliver.
I have some questions to ask you about Cuban immigration.
Hey, that's an interesting topic.
Why did your family come to the U.S.?
Wow. So our family came to the United States of America seeking political freedom.
Okay. Has Cuba changed a lot since you left?
Cuba has changed a lot since we left. It's been a long time. We left in 1970, and this is 2014, so it's been, 44 years.
Wow. How did you come to America?
Well, we were fortunate. Fidel Castro took over in Cuba in 1959, and we were there for about 10 years, and kind of realized after some time that it wasn't going to be getting any better, and in fact it hasn't, as those of us who have kind of followed some of the developments coming out of Cuba over the past 4 decades will tell you. And we had just some folks in the family that had already come to the United States, and they facilitated our immigration to the United States.
What is Cuba known for?
Well, Cuba is a country of about 14 million in population, and it's I think it's without a doubt it's known for its food, and I think that you can visit any major city in the United States of America or anywhere else and not find at least one pretty well-known Cuban restaurant. I think it's also very well known for its music. I think it's well known for its for its political history. The fact that it's a country that's only 90 miles off the coast of Florida, and it has resisted democracy for many years, and managed to remain communist, which is pretty remarkable given how many countries out there have tested that form of government and found it to not work, and then switched over to something that maybe is a little bit better. So they have stayed that course, and in a very real way they have fallen, or they have managed to really just kind of be frozen in time. So if you were to go to Cuba today, you would still see cars being driven around from the 1960s, and buildings that probably were last renovated around that time, and just things that lots of things that are in need of repair and updating, and just things of that nature, which makes it, I think, pretty unique, because it really is a place that you could kind of go visit today, and it would be like being alive and around in the 1960s before everything just kind of came to a stop.
Okay. Could anything come with you when you left Cuba? Money? Anything?
No, when we left Cuba, I think there were just a few basic things that you could take with you, like the clothes on your back, and maybe a very limited amount of jewelry. But it was, you were at the airport. You went to a checking area, and they would make sure that you had just the things that had been approved by the communist government at the time, and so it really was. A very unique situation in which you left the country with very little.
Wow. So you had to start a new life?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. I think for everyone that left about the time that we left, it was it was a brand new life. I know for your grandparents and for our family, it was very much that way.
Why did you come to America instead of another country?
Well, I think we came to America, as I said earlier, because we already had family here. I think, too, that, they had come and we came to the United States, seeking all of the freedoms and all of the opportunities that so many people have, over the past, 100 years, that come here to find. After all, this is, the land of opportunity and the land of so many freedoms.
Do you want to go back?
I think I'd like to visit Cuba one day. Obviously, I think Cuba still lives in me in a very real way. And as someone that does a lot of international travel, as your daddy works at a bank and travels throughout Latin America, and we've vacationed a lot in Europe and other places. It's a place that even if I didn't have connections to it like I have, I would definitely it would be on my list of tourist destinations. I don't know that I'd be real comfortable right now putting any money into the hands of the current government in Cuba. So I guess that is an issue right now. But I think if the right level of change were to come to Cuba, and then if it were at a time that I could make a trip down there, I think without a doubt, there's a part, and I think all of us that kind of yearns to kind of see where it was that we came from, and I think it would really be interesting for me to go back and see the home in which I was born and spent the first couple of years of my life, and maybe the church where my parents were married, and maybe the spots where my grandparents or the cemetery in which they're buried. And so there's a lot of those things. Maybe the university where my mother and my father attended, and the beaches that they talked about. So I think that there is a lot to see there, even for folks that don't have the connection to the island that I do. But I think obviously that's magnified in my case because of the history.
Do you still have any family in Cuba?
We have some family there, but it's very distant family. It's all of our immediate family left at about the same time that we had, and I think at that time there were a lot of people that were leaving the country. So yeah, I mean we have maybe I think maybe second or third cousins. There's still people that on occasion will call your grandmother, and she has some contact with them, but it's not aunts and uncles or cousins, so it's not anything that close.
Okay. What words would you use to describe your family leaving, like the conditions or things like that?
Well, I think anytime. I think if you look back at the situation in Cuba when we left, I mean, there was really kind of a transfer of wealth. What you had move in was a socialist communist form of government, one that believed that it was that whatever was in the country needed to or being privately owned and operated in the country needed to be moved into the government's hands. And so just to give you an example, say you had a company in Cuba, and it was a company that made toys. The Cuban government would come in and say, this no longer is your company; it is now our company. And so it was a very difficult time, and still is. And I guess the model, I guess, was very similar maybe to the Russian model at the time. And the idea was that that it was wrong for people. For there to be an upper class of wealthy people and a lower class of poor people, that everyone needed to kind of be on have a similar wealth. And so it's and again, the idea was that everything needed to be state owned and not privately owned. And so it was a country that for the 10 years that we had been there had been on the decline, and I think the decline has continued. Some might blame the United States for its embargo, but without a doubt, I think that even in spite of that, the conditions in Cuba would not be anywhere near to what we're accustomed to here in this country.
What are some foods that are served in America from Cuba?
Gosh.
I hear you talking about that. So.
Yeah, I think there's lots of, I think even from drinks like the Cuba Libre, which is a rum and coke, to food like black beans and rice and ropa vieja, yuca. There's a lot of different things that I think a lot of American people enjoy eating. Platanitos are also, and I'm not sure if those are native to Cuba, but it's also something that you would just about find on the plate of any Cuban having a meal, which is kind of the fried plantains. What else? Pollo empanizado, which is breaded chicken, just very thinly cut. There's a lot of very good Cuban food that's, I think, very well known.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Hey man, I appreciate it. I appreciate the interest, and if there's anything else that you need to ask me, just let me know. But I think it's I think it's an interesting story, not just because we're from there, but because I think if you look at U.S. history and you go back, and I would recommend that you Google the Cuban Missile Crisis and even John F. Kennedy's death and some of the connections. It's the Bay of Pigs, which is has an interesting name too, is a piece of very interesting history that had to do with the U.S. And Cuba, and so on and so forth. So I think you're looking at an island that back at the time was the place where all of the most the ultra rich of the United States used to have their second homes and vacations. So families like the Vanderbilts and the DuPonts and the Rockefellers. This is kind of where they all wanted to spend their summers and vacations. So there's a lot of beautiful places there. Again, I think it's fascinating that the fact that nothing has changed in so long just makes it a really kind of neat place, and then the people there, everything that they have experienced, and the fact that they've managed to keep these cars running for all of these years and all of the things. It really is kind of an interesting, I think study just to kind of see what people do when things like this happen.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome, Alex.